Next up, we're going to do some landscape stuff. Okay, but before we start doing some of the landscape stuff, I want to do some of the hard like retaining wall elements that you're going to see for the landscape. So what we have on this side of the building is a set of CMU retaining walls, and then it kind of flattens out on this side of the building. Okay, so we're going to kind of cascade some of this retaining stuff down. Yeah, we'll keep it simple that way. So if this is cascading, we have to consider a few things. But let's start off by actually just drawing the wall, and then we'll go from there. So go to wall, obviously, and just scroll up or down. Yeah. Let's do generic. We're going to do generic 8-inch masonry. Let's double check that that actually is the CMU material. Yeah, good. Concrete masonry units. Okay, good. And what I'd like you to do is just trace your CMU walls across each of these. And notice how when you draw the wall, it's going to justify to one side. So just draw all the walls and then we'll sort of size them later. I'm just going to do it this way. There we go. All right, so because we have sort of this, this one in the corner that's like square, and then we have these other two small ones that kind of fan out to a more flat area at the base of the building, I'm going to understand that to mean that the square one in the corner is the highest of the two, and it's literally terracing down. Okay, that's a total guess. That's like a design move that I'm just trying to extrapolate from what I see in the file. So what that means for me is I'm going to assume that each of these on the side is only a maximum of like 18 inches tall. And this one I'll make, let's make this 30 inches tall. Okay, so it's not much. It looks pretty subtle in our three-dimensional model, but it is something that is going to be important for us. Okay, so we've got a couple of things to do here. We need to put some sort of infill grasses and stuff like that, but also I want to point out to you that we have a sidewalk here. So if we're going to put grass in this area and it's being retained by that wall, that means that it actually has elevation somewhere, somehow. So if it has elevation, it either needs to taper off down to the sidewalk, or we need to retain it from leaking out over the sidewalk. It's kind of up to you to decide what you guys want to do with that. I think what I'm going to do in order to kind of keep it simple is to just draw another wall along the edge of the sidewalk. Oops, I drew it on the wrong side. Okay, do another one there. Whoops. Notice how when I draw this wall, it actually, and if I drop it here, it actually joins the walls into one wall. That's kind of like a Revit hard-coded thing. Yeah, if I create similar on the smaller wall, it'll borrow that height. So I'm just going to select that one and draw that there instead, and then it won't read it as one single wall. Okay. So that's kind of the design move that I'm going to take. I'm not going to retain it outside. Right now I don't know what we're going to do on the outside of the site, but we'll just kind of emulate what's happening over there somewhere. Okay, what questions do you have so far? All right, let's get into some turf. So turf can be made, let's go real quick to the massing and site tab. So you have a few ways of approaching this. I'm going to keep it really simple for us because our site doesn't have drastic topography, and we're just going to kind of modify it slightly. So you can use a topo surface, or you could just use a floor. For us, we're going to use a floor type, and we're going to just call it turf. But if you're using a topo surface, well, we'll get there later. Okay, so let's do the floor version, and then we'll do some topo surface stuff later. So create similar on your concrete. Go to edit type, duplicate it, and let's just call this turf. And in case you're wondering, turf isn't like the fake AstroTurf, it's just grass. Sure. Huh?
I was wondering, I was like searching whether it was a turf.
Yeah, we're creating a mini football field in our front yard. Okay, so I don't know if there is a grass already in here. Looks like there isn't. So let's just create a new material. And let's just rename it to turf. You generally want the turf to kind of show up like a green color. I would imagine you do. Turf generally is not solid green. It's going to be kind of like an olivey green or something like that. And I don't like to overwhelm the model colors with like super saturated colors, so I try to desaturate it quite a bit. The other thing I want you to do is pick a surface pattern that's going to be indicative of turf, if there is one. I don't know if we even have any in here. I guess not. All right, let's pick something that's just like dots or something. Ugh, we have terrible patterns here. All right, let's go with sand for now. That'll work. And yeah, you can just leave that the way it is. Oh, whoops, did I just cancel that? Crap. My bad, guys. Sorry, I accidentally hit escape and it didn't save my material. So you get to see it again. Create material, call this turf, picking a greenish, yellowish, desaturated color, and picking a sandy dot pattern. Okay, okay, okay. All right, cool. So let's just kind of have at it. What I'm going to do is infill this area right here. So we're going to pick everything up to that wall. I'm going to pick that face of this wall. I'm going to pick the outside face of that wall, outside face, outside face, outside face. Okay. So once we complete this pattern, you'll see that it's really just a surface that sort of fits into all of this. Okay. Right now, it's just a dead flat surface. What we're going to do is modify the sub-elements, and we're going to modify it so that we can create a little bit of topography that's going to drain away from the building, and it's also going to drain down here to the sidewalk. Okay, that's very important. So we need our highest points to be back here. Okay, so, well, we also have a sidewalk back there, which doesn't really work out perfectly, but we'll emulate it somehow. Let's pretend that the sidewalk is at a higher elevation back there. Okay, for now. But anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to modify the sub-elements here. I'm going to start off by just raising the surface in the back that I don't want any of the water to go into. So I'm going to raise this to like 15 inches. Okay, so that immediately raised the surface fairly significantly up to that point. Okay, so we can keep modifying sub-elements in order to create the same kind of slope that we're looking for. Notice, though, that we have sort of an edge here that we need to be concerned about. As that is elevated, we need to add or introduce sub-elements in order to mitigate that problem. So, whoops, modify sub-elements. We're going to add a point right there. Oh, I keep doing that. Make that 0. So the other thing is, like, everything back here, you want it to go high, but not as high as the one before. So we're going to change this one to like, let's do 11 inches. And then I'll change this one to like 6 inches. Okay, so now everything, and it doesn't create like an actual topo. You guys need to understand that this isn't going to create something that sort of has that nice topo that you're looking for. Okay, a topo surface is going to be better for that. But what this does help you do is rectify the relationship between surfaces as you're trying to model for like drainage or something like that. So if you need to get rid of some of these lines, you can do it by going to the Modify tab, and you use the line work tool, and you can switch this over to invisible lines, and you can get rid of some of this stuff. So even though it's kind of a silly little triangulated topo and it's not exactly, you know, accurate or whatever, you can still sort of emulate the visibility of it being sloped without being distracted by the triangulation. Okay, so this is an inaccurate method. I want to point that out very clearly. This is really just something that we use where, actually I'll show you why we do this. Okay, it doesn't have to be super accurate for us, because really all we use it for is to go into something like a floor plan and take like a section, and we'll cut it through somewhere like that. And go to that view, and that gives us like a quick topo that shows some of that gradation. Okay, that's what this kind of thing is used for. Does that make sense?
Yes, Kevin.
All right, cool. So what I'd like you to do is take this idea a little bit further and sort of develop what's happening in this planter condition. If you want to, in theory, I guess you could, well, yeah, actually, let me just kind of capture this in the same lesson. I think what we're going to do for this back sidewalk is we're going to slope it down from that point to the door, or slightly beyond the door, and then it'll be slightly below the building for the next section. So I'm going to create similar, and I'll let you guys carry this forward, but let's see, we're going to do that, that, and that. I'm going to stop this one here. Okay, and this one, modify those sub-elements. This one's going to go up to 11 inches, or no, that was 15 inches, right? 15 inches. I'm going to do add a split line, or not a split line, sorry. Add a point there, add a point here. We'll put this down to 0. 0. And then, you know, theoretically, let's keep it simple actually, okay? So this sloped down to 0, and the reason it has that triangulation line is because those 2 points that I put in aren't exactly aligned. So if it's not exactly aligned across the perpendicular, it's going to create a little triangulation. But anyway, I just wanted to show you that, you know, you can very easily rectify the relationships of these surfaces just by doing something simple like that. So that ramp is actually now sloping down to the door. I don't know why that sidewalk even goes that far up, but whatever. Okay. Yeah, so what I'd like you to do is populate these 3 planters with in the front yard with some sloping turf using a floor family, and then we'll kind of explore some other methods. Any questions? All right. You're welcome.